After two classic Final Four matchups, it's going to be Houston versus Florida for the national title. Houston stormed back from down 14 with 8 to go, down 6 with 33 seconds to beat Duke. And Florida outlasted Auburn thanks to Walter Clayton's superb play. And our Matt Norlander caught up with both before Monday's title game.
Monday, now that you've had a little bit of time to sleep on it, can you reflect on what it was like to play on that stage and do what you did, both yourself and as a team, on Saturday night?
Nah, for sure. It was just a great feeling. You know, obviously we worked a long season, worked very hard to get to this point. So just great to, get up on this stage, one of the biggest stages in basketball.
Who have you heard from that might be unexpected, out of the ordinary, names that have popped into your phone that kind of, help make the experience all the more memorable?
Nah, for sure. I had a couple people follow me on Instagram, stuff like that. But Donovan Mitchell and Matt Barnes hit me up last night, just told me good game, stuff like that, and just keep going with it all.
Are you aware of the fact that you were the first player since Carmelo Anthony to get 30-plus in a semifinal, and actually Melo happened to be in the building? How wild is that, man?
Yeah, I heard that Melo was in the building. I wasn't looking in the crowd, so I heard all the names that was here last night. But, yeah, they notified me after the game.
Dig it. Now, when you look ahead to what you got waiting, you saw what Houston did to Duke. What excites you about this matchup, but also as you have started to develop a plan in scouting, what stands out about them, and what do you see on tape?
Man, just a very physical team. Obviously they play hard. They're kind of, as Houston, they known for it. And just, it's going to be a 40-minute dogfight, man. You could have thought that they was out of that game versus Duke, but they kept going to the end. So it's going to be two teams that play 40 minutes of ball. Okay,
last question for you. You had a huge night. They're going to key in on you. But do you actually think this can work to your advantage, having the game that you kind of had, knowing full well the guys that surround you in this cast and how capable they are?
Nah, for sure. I definitely think so. I think we're going to see what they're throwing at us. I think they're going to do what they've been doing all year as far as like hard hedges, blitz and stuff like that. And we got guys around the team that can make plays.
Duke has the #1 offense in the country. Florida has the #2 offense in the country. How does a quick turnaround benefit you guys in what you do? Obviously, you had the big build-up to Duke. You had a number of days to prepare for that. But here, it's less than 48 hours. How does it benefit you?
I feel like it's a mental thing. Going into games like this, playing back-to-back games with the #1, #2 offensive team in the nation, you got to be mentally locked in, to guard those guys. There's a reason they're in the national championship game. They're pretty good, but I trust my guys, and I trust the defense that we've been playing all year, to overcome anything. So I feel like when we go up against any offensive, weapons, I feel like our defense is our backbone to anything, and they can help us win any game.
Last, real quick, what's the message to the team going into tomorrow night?
We made it far. We made it to April. One last game. Why not win it?
Appreciate it. We'll see you Monday.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, why not win it? It's simple as that, right? Houston 2-0 all-time versus Florida. Both meetings in the 1970s. Houston making their third national title game appearance, but they have never won. For Florida, they're looking to get their first title since 2007. Time now to welcome in CBS Sports men's basketball analyst Chip Patterson. And Chip, it's Houston and Florida for the national title. I know you're probably living your best life seeing Houston rip the game away from Duke as a North Carolina grad. But all rivalry aside, how much do you think Houston can ride the momentum from what they did against Duke into this game against Florida and finally get their first ever national title?
See, Chris, I think it's a concern. I think that being able to make sure that there's not a letdown, to reload the musket, so to speak, because it is so difficult after that emotional high of having to dig deep and everything that Houston needed to do to come back and win that game, an all-time Final Four game. Now, how are you going to get back up? And how are you going to raise your level? Because right now, this Florida team has something that Duke didn't necessarily have. Florida has a little bit more tournament experience than that Duke team did. Florida has a little bit more in terms of year-to-year continuity. So some of those things that I think made the biggest difference in clutch time when Houston was able to lean on that experience. We just saw J'Wan Roberts. He's played in now 17 NCAA tournament games. So what can Houston do? Chris, I think I already know the answer, because there's a lot of Duke fans and there's a lot of Auburn fans that went out into the parking lot looking to sell those tickets. And you know whose campus is about 3 hours away from San Antonio? Yeah, the Houston Cougars. I think that will be a big-time boost for any kind of letdown or any kind of fatigue that might be there. I think it's going to be a home game for Kelvin Sampson's crew.
Yeah, Kelvin Sampson, one of the best coaches in the country all time. As we go into the coaching matchup between him and Todd Golden, it's the second largest age gap between head coaches, 29 years. The largest was Jim Calhoun and Brad Stevens in 2011. And they both, preach different things to their squad. They have both different philosophies, right, with how they play their style. So what do you think is going to be the difference here as you look at this matchup?
I think it's going to be who can maintain their composure and their patience, because what both of these teams are going to do is frustrate each other terribly. I mean, it's going to be Houston just trying to choke out Walter Clayton, trying to keep him totally isolated from getting hot. So if Florida isn't hitting those shots with the secondary players and the secondary options, now all of a sudden you're going to get a little panicky. Can Todd Golden keep them calm? And if Houston gets off to another sluggish start, I mean, we forget, based on the way that finished, that Houston had about only 9 points in like the first 8 minutes of that game against Duke. And Kelvin Sampson told the CBS broadcast, he said, we're playing uncharacteristically tight. We just need to be ourselves. I'm not going to bench anybody. I'm going to stick with my guys. And so the patience is going to be so big here. Now, in terms of who has the edge, I'm going to give it to the same coach that had the edge in 2011. I think it is the seniority. I think it is the Final Four experience. This is Kelvin Sampson's third Final Four. This is Todd Golden's first Final Four. And Todd Golden, as a head coach, didn't even have a lot of NCAA tournament experience prior to arriving at Florida. So for those reasons, I'm going to go slight edge to Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah, I definitely would do the same. He's one of the brightest minds in the game when it comes to coming up with different ATOs, baseline out-of-bounds plays. Todd Golden, great start for him, right? As a head coach, he's going to have a lot more years as the Florida Gators head coach. But if there's one bold prediction, Chip, what would it be in this game?
Man, it's easy to get bold on February 8th, right? You got the whole board to play with where you pick and choose. And so I've got to get extra spicy. And I might have lost my mind, because I am going to predict something that has happened just once all season. I think the Florida Gators are going to be held under 70 points. Now, again, just once all season, Florida has failed to score 70 points or more. Their season average is 85.3 points per game. And yet here I am trying to tell you that Houston will do it. And why? It's because they hold every single opponent 10 to 12 points under their average. Just like flat, like you step off the bus, you walk into the gym, and because of Houston's combination of their defensive excellence, but also their offensive pace, it's just going to limit your scoring, slow you down, drag you into the mud. And then Houston is able to complement that with the timely shot making of L.J. Cryer, Emmanuel Sharp, with some hard play down low from Jawan Roberts. So I just think it's going to be a lower scoring game overall. And in that, I'm going to say that the Houston Cougars hold Florida under 70 points.
That doesn't surprise me. I don't think that's as bold of a prediction, just because we saw what UConn did, right,
Sure.
to Florida, and they're nowhere near Houston, right? Maybe a couple years ago when they won back-to-back titles, but Houston is the best defense in the country, so I would not be surprised if Houston's able to hold them under 70 points. The bigger question, though, Chip, is who is going to win this game? Is it going to be Houston, or does Florida take the national championship?
I've got the Houston Cougars getting it done. I just think that there is something to be said for the journey that they've been on over the course of the last couple of years. I mean, you don't enter the Final Four with more NCAA tournament wins than anyone else over the last couple of years without having built to this point. We've got the redemptive arc of Kelvin Sampson, and then also of Houston basketball, because we talk about them losing in the title game in '83 and '84. We sometimes do not mention they were in the Final Four in 1982, bounced out by Michael Jordan and that North Carolina team that went on to cut nets. I just think that playing in San Antonio after that win against Duke, it is going to be tremendously difficult to match that intensity. But if there's any team and if there's any coach in America that I think can do it, it's Kelvin Sampson and this veteran Houston Cougar squad.
I'm with you. I think this is the year they've been so close before. Jamal Shedd, he gets injured last year in the Sweet 16 game against Duke. Now they beat Duke and are one win away from hoisting their first ever national championship trophy. Chip Patterson, we always appreciate the time, man. And remember, coverage begins at 8 Eastern on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. Florida versus Houston. It all goes down starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then we'll find out who will be crowned the champs.